Welcome to your daily dose of sci-fi adventures. New stories dropped every single day. Smash that subscribe button and ring the to help us reach 1,000 subscribers and unlock even more epic cosmic tales. Captain Liana Ortiz stood alone on the observation deck of Lagrange Station, her silhouette framed by the enormous viewport. Beyond the reinforced glass, the pale gray orb of NX-17 drifted silently against the star-dusted void, a celestial body so unremarkable that for decades it had been catalogued only as a minor satellite. Ortiz sipped the last of her bitter synth coffee, the acidic tang grounding her thoughts as she prepared for another routine shift. The station itself was a marvel of human engineering, a sprawling ring of interconnected modules tethered to a central hub, nestled precisely at the L point between Alpha Centauri A and B. It served as a research outpost, a diplomatic waypoint, and on quieter days a tourist attraction for sightseers, eager to glimpse the suns in the sky. But quiet had become a luxury ever since the discovery of NX-17's peculiar mineral composition. Mining corporations and academic teams had jostled for permission to drill, sample, and exploit. Lagrange Station's corridors thrummed with experts in geology, exogeology, and xenogeophysics, each convinced they would be first to unlock the moon's hidden wealth. Ortiz glanced at the holoclock floating beside her. 3:12 station time, July 8, 2325. She inhaled, letting the recycled air fill her lungs. The station's cybernetic skeletal supports thrummed with energy, and the low hum of reactor cores drifted through the steel lattice. A gentle vibration beneath her feet reminded her that, despite its celestial perch, Lagrange was very much alive. Her intercom buzzed. "Captain," came Dr. Raj Thorne's crisp voice from the adjacent lab. Thorne, the station's lead astrophysicist, had been obsessively monitoring NX-17's orbital parameters since they'd detected minute irregularities, a wobble too precise to be coincidental. Ortiz tapped her wrist comm. "What is it, Doc?" "Readings on the isotopic decay sensors have spiked." "I can't explain it." His tone carried a mixture of excitement and unease. "You'd better see this." Moments later, Ortiz followed the glowing corridor to the Orbital Observations Lab. The room was filled with holoprojections, spectral analysis, gravimetric graphs, and a pulsing waveform that danced across the main display. At the controls stood Dr. Elias Halpern, the station's chief xenophysicist, his usually composed face drained of color. "Captain," Halpern greeted, voice tight. "We've just picked up a signal." Ortiz's eyebrows rose. "A signal like?" "Radioed exactly that." Halpern tapped the console. The waveform sharpened into a series of deliberate pulses, alternating high-frequency bursts, interspersed with lower, resonant chords. "At first, we thought it was cosmic background noise, then we filtered it. Then," he swallowed, "you think it's coming from NX-17? Origin coordinates point directly to the satellite's subsurface," Raj Thorne confirmed. Joining them at the console, "We've scanned 1,000 times mineral deposits, magnetic fluctuations. Nothing else should produce this pattern. Yet here it is." The pulse intensified, and Ortiz felt a faint vibration in the deck beneath her. It was as if the moon itself had inhaled, readying to speak. Around her, the station's alarms remained silent, but in that hush, every heartbeat sounded amplified. "Can you decode it?" Ortiz asked, gripping the console's edge. Halpern's fingers flew over the interface. "Preliminary runs suggest an encrypted data stream structured. It's not random. There's a pattern, but it seems addressed, like a call sign." Ortiz exchanged a glance with Thorne. "Addressed to whom?" "That's the odd part," Thorne said. "Our systems picked up a target signature embedded in the code. A neural template." "A neural template," Ortiz echoed. Meaning. Halpern said, voice lowered. "It's keyed to a living brain. One human in particular." Silence settled over the lab. The magnitude of the claim sank in. NX-17 a rock. They'd assumed broadcasting not to humanity at large, but to a single individual. "Who?" Ortiz whispered. "Subject ID 042, Halpern replied. "Dr. Mara Kim." Ortiz's pulse quickened. Mara Kim, the station's new psychologist, had arrived just 3 sols ago. Her appointment intended to help the crew manage long-term isolation effects. Ortiz had barely interacted with her. Save for a brief orientation, nothing in Kim's dossier hinted at any cosmic significance. Preparation teams, Ortiz ordered, voice firm. I want full spectrum scans on NX-17's signal. Cross-reference it with every neural pattern we have. And secure Dr. Kim. No one except essential personnel is to contact her. Understand? Understood. Captain, Halpern and Thorne snapped. To attention, pulling up additional monitors, Ortiz turned, striding toward the door. Her mind raced. If the moon was reaching out to Dr. Kim, why? What did the signal want her to do? And more importantly, how could an inanimate body conceal such secrets? Hours later, in her modest quarters tucked away behind the comms hub, Dr. Mara Kim sat at her desk, reviewing the day's psychological assessments. The walls were bare except for a single framed photo of Earth's Pacific coast, taken before she'd volunteered for the deep space assignment. Outside her porthole, a sliver of NX-17 shone like a distant pearl. A soft chime sounded on her neuro interface. Startled, she touched the implant's control pad. An alert blinked on the small holo display. Unauthorized signal detected. She frowned. Her implants were strictly regulated by station security protocols. No outside transmissions should penetrate them. Against her better judgment, she engaged the DeepScan protocol. Through her neural feed, a cascade of data poured, in a rhythm of pulses that resonated eerily with her own brain's alpha waves. She felt a pull, a coaxing tug at the edges of her consciousness. Mara, the word hovered inside her mind, an intimate summons she hadn't expected. The syllable lingered, followed by a vibration at the base of her skull, as if someone or something was calling her. Adrenaline spiked. She severed the connection, heart pounding. She slumped back, breathing hard. What the hell was that? But curiosity, relentless as gravity, drew her back. Swallowing hard, she reconnected. A holo image bloomed in the air before her. A topographical map of NX-17's far side, overlaid with intricate geometric patterns. Coral-like formations glowed beneath the surface, and at its center, a crater roughly 2 kilometers wide pulsed with a soft, violet luminescence. No words came, yet a voice came, resonant and layered, deep as the station's engines. It spoke not through sound, but through thought, weaving images and emotions. I await you. Mara's vision blurred. She staggered to her feet, pressing shaky fingers to the holo. Who are you? She whispered aloud. Silence. Then the violet glow intensified, sending ripples of light dancing across her walls. In that moment, as the moon's secret reached out across the void, Lagrange Station unknowingly stood on the brink of a discovery that would change not just one life, but the fate of humanity itself. And at the heart of it all, Dr. Mara Kim trembled, caught between fear and fascination, unable to look away. Dr. Mara Kim's quarters were suffused with the pale glow of NX-17's holographic projection. Even after she'd severed the connection, the image of that violet-lit crater swirled in her vision, imprinting itself on her mind. She stood motionless, the hum of her neural implant echoing in her ears like distant thunder. Every rational instinct screamed that she should deactivate the DeepScan protocol, report the anomaly through secure channels, and lock down her cybernetic interface. But another, deeper impulse pulled her forward, a need to understand, to know. Why this moon? This silent sentinel had singled her out. A sharp knock at the door startled her. Her heart leapt, and she hastily closed the holo. Enter, Lieutenant Suri Patel. The station's head of security for psychological matters slipped inside. Patel's keen eyes darted to the darkened console. Doctor, are you all right? Captain Ortiz wants to see you immediately in the command hub. She paused, assessing Mara's ashen face. You look unsettled. Mara swallowed. Something came through my implant. A message. She gestured to the now blank interface. It wasn't a log file or a test pattern. It was alive. Patel's jaw tightened. Broadcasts from NX-17. That's impossible. All comms arrays have been offline for months, until Halpern activated the deep-range sensors this morning. She stepped closer. You need to tell Ortiz everything. Her tone shifted, gentler. I know it's scary, but we're in this together. Mara nodded, voice faint. I'll meet her. She followed Patel out into the corridor. Each step weighted with dread and anticipation. In the hallway's luminescent panels, her reflection flickered, eyes wide, cheeks pale. The command hub was alive with low chatter as Ortiz studied a rotating 3D model of NX-17's interior. On the central holoscreen, technicians in light blue overalls tapped at datapads, crews monitored sensor feeds, and Raj Thorne stood to one side, rubbing his temples, when the doors glided open. All eyes turned to Mara. "Doctor," Ortiz said, voice measured but urgent. "Halpern's preliminary tests confirm there's a structured emission from the moon and encrypted data stream, but he can only decode a primitive metadata layer. You received something more. Explain." Mara swallowed and approached the holoscreen. She keyed in her personal access code. Overriding Patel's security locks, the holo sprang to life, mapping sequences of cascading glyphs through her implant logs. "This isn't just a broadcast," she began. "It's a two-way interface. When I reactivated the scan, the moon responded to my neural signature. It knows me, my brainwave patterns, my implant encryption, even fragments of my emotional state." Ortiz frowned. "Why you, Mara?" Mara closed her eyes for a moment, gathering her composure. "I don't know, but I think it saw something in my mind, what I study, what I theorize. My work on empathic interface protocols may have primed me, made my neural architecture compatible." Thorne stepped forward, voice tight. "Compatible how? This station uses standardized implant kernels. Everyone's neural uplink is essentially the same model, but I'm running an experimental module." Mara explained. "It integrates cortical mapping with analog emotional feedback. No one else here has it yet. It's possible the moon's encryption algorithm keyed onto the one person whose system matches its own neural template." Ortiz exchanged looks with Thorne. "So an X-17's addressing protocol matched you down to your implant firmware?" Mara nodded. "Exactly." Her pulse hammered in her throat when it called my name. It wasn't spoken, it was transmitted directly into my limbic system. I felt curiosity, longing, an invitation. Patel's eyes narrowed. "An invitation? To what?" Mara tapped the console again. The glyphs reorganized into a star chart, a spiral galaxies, arms traced in luminous arcs. At its center, a tiny dot pulsed, an ancient supermassive black hole. "This," she whispered, voice trembling, "is the address line. A location in the Orcs sector far beyond established exploration routes." Silence fell. Ortiz's hand hovered over the console. "You mean the archive is leading you somewhere?" Mara exhaled slowly. "It wants me to come, to interface with it directly, unmediated by station arrays. The crater, it's a doorway." Thorne's face paled. "A doorway to what? We've only ever drilled into NX-17's rock. There's no environment we know of, no habitable space, no life support. The crater isn't natural," Mara said, eyes lit by the glow. "It's hollowed out." The violet glow was emanating from its walls, an active energy field, like a gateway. When I connected, I felt that field resonate with my cortex. It was welcoming. Ortiz locked eyes with Mara. "If there's a chance that crater leads to the archive's core, then it could contain untold knowledge, but it could also be a trap." She turned to Patel. "Security detail double the perimeter watches at the observation deck entrance. No one goes in or out without my express permission." Patel saluted. "Right away." Thorne tapped his comm. "Engineering teams, I need power rerouted to the deep skin emitters. We need continuous monitoring of the crater's energy signatures, in case the moon wakes up again." He looked at Mara. "And Doctor, we'll need your expertise to safely parse any further transmissions." Mara nodded, heart pounding with a mix of fear and exhilaration. "I'll help." Later that soul, in the dimly lit corridor leading to the observation deck, Mara's footsteps echoed on the metal grating. Each panel overhead hummed with recycled air. She paused before the iris shutter doors and inhaled deeply. Her cybernetic implant tingled, sending a gentle reminder of the connection she'd made and the one she'd almost broken. Ortiz was already there, arms crossed, gazing at NX-17 through the viewport. The moon looked innocent, just a lifeless rock. Yet Mara knew better. Beneath that fouade lay something ancient and aware. "You ready?" Ortiz asked softly. Mara placed a hand on the cold glass, aligning her sight with the crater's far side. As ready as I'll ever be, Ortiz nodded. Then let's open the door. In the control alcove, Halpern initiated the hatch sequence. Hydraulic servos rumbled. The curved doors slid aside, revealing the observation catwalk bathed in starlight. Mara followed Ortiz onto the narrow platform, every step taking her closer to destiny. Activating deep-skin emitters, Halpern's voice crackled over the calm, a low-frequency tone built in the chamber, reverberating through the catwalk. The crater's violet glow intensified, veins of luminescence weaving across its inner rim. Mara felt a vibration in her bones as if the moon itself was breathing. Ortiz placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Focus on the signal. Let it guide you. Mara closed her eyes, reaching out with her mind. The crackling energy field enveloped her neural interface. She felt the archive's presence vast, patient, beckoning. Then, like threads weaving into tapestry, words formed in her consciousness. Come, witness, become. Her eyes snapped open. In the crater's depths, a shimmering gateway of light coalesced a rippling frame like liquid crystal. A corridor of floating motes extended inward, disappearing into darkness beyond. She swallowed, breath catching in her throat. By the stars, Ortiz murmured. Mara took a step forward. The portal pulsed in response, as if acknowledging her. She glanced at Ortiz one last time, then turned her gaze back to the moon, no longer a silent rock, but a living archive calling her home. And with that single, fateful step, the true journey began. The corridor's walls shimmered like liquid crystal, each pulse of light resonating softly against Mara Kim's skin. As she and Captain Ortiz stepped through the gateway, behind them, the violet glow of the crater's rim dimmed, sealing with a gentle hum that vibrated through the observation catwalk. Durs, Halpern, and Thorn peered through the viewport, their faces illuminated by alarms and display consoles. But no amount of sensors could capture what lay beyond that threshold. Mara inhaled, the tang of charged particles brushing her tongue through the station's filtered air. She looked at Ortiz. Are you ready? Ortiz gave her a firm nod, hand hovering over her sidearm. Stay close. Keep your interface online. They advanced into the archive's vestibule, and Mara's heart pounded against her ribs as the crystalline floor solidified beneath their boots. The corridor branched in multiple directions, each passage lined with bioluminescent glyphs that rippled like living script. As they walked, the glyphs unfurled into constellations, chemical formulas, and portraits whose features shifted as if alive. This isn't just data storage, Mara whispered. It's an interactive memory. A soft voice echoed in her mind, not words, but impressions, curiosity, longing, and an unspoken question. She raised her neural interface's datapad, scanning one of the glyphs projecting a three-dimensional molecular lattice of an unknown compound. The lattice rotated, then dissolved into a cascade of mathematical theorems. With a thought, Mara triggered a translation overlay, ancient Orcsith script translating into basic standard. From the ashes of our home, we cast our legacy into the cosmos, to cleanse and to enlighten. Ortiz stepped beside Mara, awed. They were fleeing an apocalypse. The corridor opened into a vast domed chamber. At its center hovered a translucent glowband orb roughly the size of a small moon, floating without visible support. Inside swirled star systems, cultural artifacts, and living beings. Each rotation revealed new wonders, a library of crystalline tablets, a field of bioluminescent flora, a projection of a city carved into asteroid rock. Mara reached out, fingertips barely brushing the orb's surface. Instantly, the chamber brightened, and the orb's contents coalesced into a narrative panorama, Orcsith Prime. In its final days, a world of ivory spires and obsidian plazas, its skies tinted amber by the dying star. Scholars and artists worked feverishly, capturing their ceremonies, philosophies, encoded in crystal. When the cataclysm struck supernova fire bathing the horizon, they launched an X-17 into space, embedding within it the sum of their civilization. The seed of memory, the orb revealed the encryption process, quantum-locked neural templates, matched to a seeker, a living mind capable of translating the vault's emotional and intellectual depths. The Seeker's lineage stretched back through 1,000 generations. A roll passed across the Orcs diaspora. The choice footage showed the sacrifice of the Temple Keeper's crystalline avatars, who orchestrated the seed launch, dissolving into pure energy as NX-17 activated its orbital trajectory. Mara gasped as a spectral figure emerged from the orb's core, a tall, lithe silhouette with no distinct features, but an aura of serene authority. The figure extended a hand toward her, and Mara felt a jolt, as though every memory she'd ever had was scanned in an instant. "Seeker," the voice resonated directly in her consciousness. "You have come. Yet to bear the archive's burden is to carry both light and shadow." Ortiz's voice cracked. "Mara, what is it saying?" Mara's breath trembled. It's warning me. The knowledge it's not purely benevolent. There are weapons, doctrines of control, the darkness of empires that once sought to dominate galaxies." The orb shifted, replaying scenes of Orcs war machines towering constructs that bent gravity fields, their obliterating beams cleaving through planets like wax. Then the footage flickered to art galleries, genetic symphonies that healed disease, and blueprints for free energy reactors. Everything they were, Mara murmured, all of it preserved unfiltered. In that moment, the figure in the orb's core leveled its gaze at Ortiz and Mara. Without words, Mara understood. The archive sought a guardian who could discern creation from destruction, who could choose which legacies to awaken and which to seal away forever. The dome's lights dimmed, and a single pathway glowed, leading deeper into the structure. The glyphs along its edges scrolled a simple phrase. In Mara's mind, "Ascend." Ortiz placed a steadying hand on Mara's shoulder. "We'll face this together, Doctor, but we have to inform the station. This is bigger than any one person." Mara hesitated. The orb's luminescent vista seemed to pulse with urgency, a heartbeat urging her onward. Yet every step deeper risked revealing truths that might fracture alliances back at Lagrange Station. Knowledge of the archive's dark arsenal could trigger a scramble governments, corporations, mercenaries clamoring for control. With a resolute inhale, Mara turned to Ortiz. "Captain, I have to see the core. I need to understand the full scope, every equation, every memory before we decide what to release." Ortiz met her gaze and nodded. "Then let's go." They followed the illuminated path, the chamber's crystalline architecture shifting, subtly as if alive. Walls parted to reveal frescoes, a family imprinting their children's laughter into biocrystals, scholars negotiating a peace treaty with an alien envoy, devotees singing a hymn of starlit promise. Mara's chest tightened. She felt the pulse of countless lives breathing through the archive. At the path's end, they entered a circular sanctum, a pedestal carved from the same transparent crystal. As the orb stood at its center, its surface rippling with etheric energy, above it floated a single glyph, the universal symbol of Orcs unity, a spiral converging into a point. As Mara approached, the pedestal's energy field rippled outwards, synchronizing with her neural implant. Equations scrawled themselves in the air, converging into a schematic that projected a three-dimensional model of the archive's core node, a vast crystalline nexus buried within the moon's mantle. In her mind's ear, the archive spoke. "Here lies the heart. With it, the power to heal or to destroy. Choose your hand wisely." Mara felt tears spring to her eyes, not of fear, but of sorrow and awe. She had glimpsed the heights of Arseth, wisdom, the ability to sculpt living ecosystems from light and the abyss they once teetered over, the temptation to wield power as a weapon of conquest. She turned to Ortiz. "If we fetch this core, we must establish safeguards. The station has protocols for biohazards and radiation, but nothing for sentient data, and certainly nothing for an archive that thinks." Ortiz unshouldered her. "Field calm. I'll secure a council meeting. We need command, science, security, all hands. There's no going back once this leaves NX-17. Mara placed a trembling hand on the glyph above the pedestal. The spiral glowed, folding in on itself. She whispered, "Guardian's oath," and in her mind's voice repeated the vow of neutrality, compassion, and discernment that the archive had supplied during her neural connection. A pulse of light rushed outwards, enveloping them both. The glyph fractured into 1,000 motes of illumination, cascading through the corridor and back to the chamber they'd passed. The orb in the vestibule now bore a new emblem, Mara's imprint, woven into the archive's holographic tapestry. Outside, at the crater's rim, Halpern's voice crackled. "Captain, incoming vessel detected. Unknown signature marked." Hull, Ortiz's jaw clenched. "Prepare defensive protocols, and Mara, come back safe." Mara took one last look at the pedestal's ghostly afterglow. "I will." As they retraced their steps, the archive's memory trails shifted to conceal the path, an intelligent labyrinth reacting to its new guardian's presence. Footsteps echoed down the corridor, charged with purpose and peril. Beyond the gateway, the real challenge awaited: to bring the archive's gifts to humanity and to shield the galaxy from its latent darkness. And so, sealed by her promise and steeled by her resolve, Mara Kim walked toward Lagrange Station, bearing the weight of an entire civilization's legacy and the fate of countless worlds. The comms console aboard Lagrange Station crackled with urgency as Captain Ortiz raced down the corridor that led from the airlock to the command hub. Behind her, Mara Kim followed, clutching a crystalline shard, the first fragment of the archive's core node that pulsed softly against her palm. The unmarked vessel loomed on the station's radar, drifting without identification through the L gateway dot in the command hub. Lieutenant Suri Patel stood at a tactical display, her fingers dancing across the holo controls. "They're hailing us, Captain," she reported. "No standard calm encryption. It's a scrambled." Ortiz dropped into the captain's chair. "Patch it through." Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned with resolve. A moment later, the main viewport flickered, revealing a sleek, angular ship bristling with sensor rays and armed ports. No flags, no insignia. Just silent menace against the void. A voice crackled through the speakers, distorted, metallic, yet unmistakably human in cadence. "Lagrange Station," it intoned. "We know you've accessed the NX-17 archive. Hand it over, or we take it by force." Mara felt a chill. This was no scientific delegation. It was a mercenary outfit. Someone had tracked her neural signature or intercepted Halpern's preliminary reports. Without hesitation, Ortiz tapped her comm. "Security teams to docking bay 4, prepare to repel any boarding attempts. Shields at 20%. I want every emitter on that crater." As Ortiz issued orders, Mara approached the tactical display. "Captain, the vessel's signature matches the Black Core Syndicate mercenaries specializing in high-value tech extractions. They'll strike hard, fast, then we deny them," Ortiz said. "Dr. Kim, your shard can activated defensive protocol within NX-17. Mara nodded, voice firm. "Yes, the archive's core fragments are keyed to my neural imprint. If I interface properly, I can trigger NX-17's secondary defense matrix and energy field that will shield the station and the moon. But it requires me to be on the crater rim." Ortiz glanced at the viewport, where the mercenary ship's assault drones were already detaching. "Get your field suit. Patel and I will escort you." She stood. "Halpern, Thorne, prepare the airlock. Remtech teams on stun rounds only. We need those marks alive." Moments later, Mara, Ortiz, and Patel stepped through the hatch into the low-gravity corridor that led to the observation deck. The station's bulkheads rattled as drones fired magnetic harpoons against its exterior. Yellow alert sirens wailed. Outside the viewport, Black Core assault craft swarmed among Lagrange's orbital modules, their engines sparking against the starfield. Mara's neural implant buzzed with the archive's presence, guiding her steps, each heartbeat synchronized with the shard's pulsing glow. Ortiz and Patel flanked her, weapons drawn, eyes scanning for breaches. As they reached the catwalk, Ortiz keyed her comm. "Halpern, status, 40% breach on the lower hull." His voice grim replied. "They're exploiting our sensor rays, but the crater's energy field is stable. You have a 10-second window." Patel grabbed Mara's arm. "Go now." They dashed across the catwalk, the shard's light reflecting in Mara's visor. Beyond the iris doors, the crater yawned like a patient beast. Its violet glow lined the chamber walls, and at its center, the intact gateway flickered, hungry for connection. Mara stepped forward, raising the crystalline shard overhead. She closed her eyes and centered her mind on the patterns she had memorized. The archive's promise: Its warnings, the Guardian's oath. With a deep breath, she touched the shard to the gateway's rim. A surge of energy rippled outward, crackling. Arcs of violet light danced along the crater's walls, converging into a dome that enveloped the observation deck and extended into space. Beyond the station's hull, the mercenary drones faltered, their harpoons snapping as they hit the barrier. Outside the viewport, Ortiz watched them drift harmlessly into the void. A triumphant cheer rose from the corridor behind them, but Mara did not smile. The archives field was more than defense, it was a statement. Power now wielded with compassion. Not conquest, field stabilized, Mara reported. But the mercenary ship is initiating a retreat orbit. Ortiz gritted her teeth. Let them go. We've made our point. She turned to Mara, offering her hand. You did it. Mara placed the shard back in her pocket, its glow dimming. We did it together. Back in the command hub, Ortiz convened an emergency council. The station's administrative officers, security chiefs, engineering leads, and DRs, Halpern and Thorne assembled around a circular table, the holographic model of NX-17 hovering above them. On the opposite side, Mara took her place. Guardian of the archive. Ortiz addressed the room. The mercenaries will report back to their sponsors. We can expect another attempt, maybe a full-scale assault. We need a long-term strategy. Thorne leaned forward. We can't just seal the archive back up. The knowledge within could save billions, or end billions. We have to decide what to release and what to withhold. Patel nodded. Security cannot be indefinite. Someone could show up with enough firepower to punch through any shield. Mara stood, clearing her throat. The archive taught me that knowledge, once unleashed, cannot be contained easily. But it also revealed the Orsith ethic. Wisdom brings responsibility. We must form a council, a coalition of scientists, ethicists, and diplomats who will vet and contextualize the information before publication. Ortiz regarded her thoughtfully. A modern Orsith council. It's ambitious. Who sits on it? Mara thought of faces on the station. Halpern's analytical rigor, Thorne's astrophysical insight, Patel's ethical clarity, Ortiz's steadfast leadership. We start here. Then we reach out to the Alpha Centauri coalition governments. Transparency wins trust. A heavy silence followed. Then Halpern spoke, voice soft but resolute. Agreed. We'll draft a charter immediately. Ortiz tapped the table, nodding. And I'll send a message to Earth Space Command. Explain the situation honestly. If we do this together, we'll stand stronger. As the council dispersed to their tasks, Mara slipped away to the small alcove where the archive shard lay on a charging cradle. She watched its gentle pulse, a heartbeat of an ancient civilization now entrusted to her care. The weight of that trust pressed on her chest, but she felt ready. Outside the viewport, the unmarked mercenary vessel drifted beyond the shield's boundary. In its darkened hold, aggressors pored over the station's transponder logs and sensor data, realizing too late that the prize they sought was no mere payload but a living archive bound to a single human mind. Days later, as Lagrange Station's council broadcast the first vetted data packages, the cure for a neurodegenerative plague, a sustainable fusion reactor design. Mara stood once more at the observation deck. Beside her, Ortiz sipped synth coffee, their reflections twinned in the viewport glass. They're calling you. The moon's voice back on Earth, Ortiz said, half smiling. The public loves a good headline. Mara laughed softly. I'd prefer Guardian of the Archive, but I suppose Moon's voice will do for now. Ortiz placed a hand on Mara's shoulder. You saved us from ourselves, Doctor, and you gave humanity a choice. Mara watched NX-17 drift in the starlight, no longer merely a rock, but a beacon of promise. The real work begins now, she said. We must guide the galaxy toward the good the archive can offer, and guard against the darkness it contains. Ortiz nodded, her gaze fierce with purpose. Then let's get to work. And as the twin suns of Alpha Centauri rose over the lunar horizon, Dr. Mara Kim, the chosen seeker, embraced her destiny. The archive's song had begun. Its melody, a chorus of hope and warning, would resonate across the stars for generations to come.